I'm going to go out on a limb here. The 2011 Canadian Grand Prix is not Jenson Button's greatest drive. Many people remember his charge from last to snatch victory from Sebastian Vettel on the final lap in Montreal. Button needed an awful lot of luck that day, and I think there are other races that showed off his abilities better. This is a short view back to the past on why Jenson Button's 2011 Canadian Grand Prix win isn't his best.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
Button won 15 of his 306 World Championship starts, and the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix is by far his most famous. Button qualified 7th and exchanged places 3 times with his fiery McLaren teammate Lewis Hamilton in the early laps, as both made errors in the wet. At the end of lap 7, Hamilton got a run on Button out of the last chicane and moved to the left-hand side as the two head down the start-finish straight. Button held his line, the two cars touched, and Hamilton was put out of the race. Safety car came out and Button survived. Button soon pitted for intermediate tyres, but then got a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car, so it had already been a pretty dramatic race and it had hardly got started. He soon started to fly on the intermediate rubber, as he often did. Button stopped for wet tyres, but soon the conditions were so bad that they brought out the red flags. After a 2-hour wait, the race finally got away again with Button in 10th position. Once again, Button was on the move, but this time there was a clash with a Ferrari. He got a run down the inside of Fernando Alonso's Ferrari, approaching turn 3. The two of them went in side by side, but the McLaren just tipped the right rear of the Ferrari. Alonso spun and got beached on the curb. This was crucial because it meant that the safety car slowed the rest of the pack as Button crawled back to the pits with a puncture and front wing damage, so he had yet another pit stop. He's now last, but he is still on the lead lap. From the lap 41 restart, we saw Button at his best. He flew through the field and also picked the perfect moment to switch onto slick tyres. He had climbed to 4th when another clash further back brought out the final safety car. This was the 6th safety car in the race. He soon overcame Mark Webber's Red Bull and Michael Schumacher's Mercedes after the restart, and with 5 laps to go, 3.2 seconds behind leader Sebastian Vettel. Vettel had dominated the race and was rather unfortunate to keep losing a big lead that he'd built up. Now with Button behind him, Vettel had no response. He upped his pace, but Button just kept coming and soon caught the Red Bull. On the final lap, Vettel slid wide at turn 6 and Button was through to score his 10th and most famous F1 victory. There's no doubt it was a remarkable race. Button has had 5 pit stops, a drive-through penalty and 2 clashes, fallen to the back of the field and still managed to win. He'd also kept pushing against all the odds, but he'd made errors and he needed an awful lot of luck to get there, and that's why I don't think this is his finest drive. I reckon the 2010 Chinese Grand Prix should be Button's #1 drive, because it was a rare duel between two of F1's greatest wet weather racers that Jenson won. It was only Button's 4th drive for McLaren, having left Brawn as world champion and joining Lewis Hamilton. A lot of people didn't think that he'd match up, but he won as early as Australia and was then impressive again in China. Button qualified 5th and soon rose to 2nd as other cars pitted as rain arrived, only he and leader Nico Rosberg staying out. It was the right decision. The rain went away, the track dried, and almost everyone else had to come back into the pits to change back to slick tyres. Button tracked Rosberg, and when Rosberg made a small mistake as rain arrived again, Button took the lead. He then did pick for intermediates. At this point, Button was nearly a minute clear of his most likely rivals, the Red Bulls of Vettel and Webber, and of course Lewis Hamilton. But then Jaime Alguersuari's Toro Rosso clashed with the HRT of Bruno Senna and brought out the safety car, completely eradicating Button's advantage. Hamilton made the most of the opportunity and was soon up to 4th. When everyone had pitted for fresh intermediates, he was up to 2nd, just 3.3 seconds behind Button. The two British world champions now traded best lap time. But Hamilton's tyres went off first and Button extended his lead to 10 seconds with 7 laps to go. Then his tyres went off and he made a small mistake and Hamilton came back at him. But Button held on to take the checker flag by 1.5 seconds to win one of the few and brilliant wet weather duels. If anything, luck had been against Button in China. He'd lost that big lead after all. He'd also made all the right calls at the right times and withstood enormous pressure from one of F1's true great drivers in the same car in tricky conditions. And that's why I think the 2010 Chinese Grand Prix should be regarded higher on Button's list than 2011 Canada. I'd also point to the Hungarian Grand Prix and Japanese Grand Prix in 2011 as another 2 good races for Button fans. Nevertheless, no one would deny that the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix was a fantastic race, and I'm sure it will be remembered for many years to come. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button and subscribe. Please do also in the comments let us know what you'd like us to look at in another episode of A Short View Back to the Past, and take a look at Motorsport TV for other motorsport videos.